Americans. Today we have our guest, Carol Carpenter. Carol is a really successful entrepreneur. In 2012, she started MotoVixens LLC, a motorcycle track day organization. It was with a mission to be inclusive of all riders, regardless of their gender, race, and religion, and without discrimination of the type of bikes they ride. MotoVixens focuses on education, safety, community, and ensures the preservation of the sport. In championing women in motorcycling and other industries, it is her desire to give access without barriers and provide mentorship to help them succeed. She's also a TEDx speaker, author, a model, actress, stunt woman, voiceover actor, racer. She's been in a reality TV show and is a managing partner in Iron Dog Media. So Carol comes from is a first generation child whose parents immigrated from Taiwan. So she has a very unique perspective when it comes to like American culture and entrepreneurship in general. And I thought that she would be a great interview for this show. So let me introduce Carol to us. Carol, are you there?
I am.
Hey, Carol. Thank you for coming to this show. We really appreciate it. So, Carol, I know that you're an entrepreneur. You've been a TEDx speaker. You're a very successful author, a best-selling author, actually. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started?
Yeah, about myself, you mentioned I was born in the US and both my parents are from Taiwan. And you don't think anything of it, obviously, when you're a kid, right? Because you just think, oh, this is normal. But it became really clear when I was school age that our family was not normal because I didn't look like all the other kids. And even though I spoke perfect English, the way I looked led to a lot of teasing and racism. And back then, we didn't have like the adults were not willing to stick up for us. So principals, teachers, that kind of stuff was something that we had to deal with. And it's true. It either makes you stronger or it completely breaks you down. And if anything, I think it made me stronger because there was really nothing at that point anybody could say or do that could harm me because you get a thick skin, and maybe that was my foundation to kind of get that I don't know, that desire to want to break out of what they considered was this immigrant kind of racism issue that they had, to show them that we're no different. We're all people. And just because, I might have a different skin color, my eyes look a little bit different, it doesn't matter. We're all people. And if we can just treat each other as individuals, right? The world would be a better place, because right now I just see so much division and so much negativity. It just upsets me.
No, totally. So Carol, how long, like, what is like the length of time in which you had these realizations, like as the daughter of immigrant parents? Like, what is the
Oh
time?
gosh, I think elementary school. I mean, don't you think by the time you hit elementary school, because you're exposed to more people around you, and previously it could just be your neighborhood friends, or even, your family members like cousins and stuff like that who look very similar to you. So you don't think that you're odd, right? But then you get put into a public school setting. It's when you really see the differences, and you eat differently than they do. And so that's where they didn't understand. And when people don't understand things, they don't necessarily accept them. They don't keep an open mind.
No, totally. So, Carol, when it comes to like basically like the context of like the circumstances you grew up in, what is the overall arching goal and vision when it comes to your life and your career?
If anything, because I grew up the way I did, and it was so difficult, and I'm not sure what it's like in your culture, but in my culture, males are revered. And for me, being female and also the firstborn in my family, um, I didn't know as a child I wasn't wanted, right? And it
Oh my
wasn't
God.
till yeah,
Right.
it wasn't till later that I found out, even from my own grandmother, that told me that, my dad was very short-sighted because of my sex, because my gender wasn't wanted. And it was purely because as a male, I would be able to carry on the family line. The idea is the female marries off, carries another surname, therefore breaks away from the family, right? And so it was hard. It was a hard childhood growing up, knowing that you weren't wanted. And I think the insult to injury was that my dad could not get rid of me, so he made every day of my life excruciating.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah. It makes you stronger. It makes you stronger as an individual because you have to realize that maybe their upbringing led them to those biases and those beliefs, right? And maybe that's the reason I am so open-minded. I wasn't just raised, with two cultures. I was raised with two religions. And while, religions are similar in having faith, but I was raised Buddhist and I was raised Presbyterian. In fact, I was baptized Presbyterian because I spent the majority of my time with my mother's family after they got divorced. So, by the time I was a teenager, I went through confirmation and everything and took my mother's religion, which was Presbyterian, and which is funny because she's Taiwanese. You'd expect her to be Buddhist, right?
Mhm.
But somehow the missionaries made it all the way to Taiwan. And, so here we are. We're Presbyterian. And yeah, so my dad, and it's sad because I wish he didn't let like his limited beliefs from the culture um, keep us from getting to know each other, right? And he did because it was so ingrained in him that he couldn't help it. And I think the hardest part was finding out that, because he couldn't get rid of me, because I wasn't born in Taiwan. And we call it a dirty little secret, and it is. Nobody discusses anymore like the practice that was so common. And if you were a firstborn female, your life was basically going to be you were left out to die. You were taken to a church in hopes that somebody would adopt you, or you would be given to a family member who couldn't have children and they would adopt you as their own.
That's
Or you could take the fourth one, which is they could have sold you off to slavery. So you would become a servant for another person's family.
that is messed up.
So when, I think it's funny when people say, oh my God, my life is so hard. And I'm like, okay. So if you were given one of those options, of which some of them are not good options, right? How can you complain about your life right now when you live in this land of opportunity? And in fact, I think it's become the land of entitlement because everybody's so freaking lazy now, they won't do anything, right? Whereas before, for me to get out of a situation like that, I had to prove myself, and maybe that's the reason why, I was studying to be a doctor because I figured if I could be successful enough, my dad would accept me. And I mean, I was a very bright student and I got grants to go to med school. So I couldn't believe that, I would try this hard and I couldn't even earn my father's love or acceptance for that matter. And truthfully, isn't that what every human being wants is acceptance?
Totally.
Yeah. So I think that's what makes me or made me foundationally the person I am.
Wow. It's no,
It's a
yeah.
lot, right? Yeah.
No, yeah, but it's yeah. So what drew so continuing from this, like, is this what drove you to is this what motivated you to succeed? And like, was this the pushing or elemental factor that pushed you to succeed in your career altogether?
No, I don't think so. I think the drive was always there. What I never really could get my grasp on in my younger years is what I actually wanted to do because so much of my past was in studying to be a doctor. And that identity was linked with my family and what they wanted me to be because it was for I don't know if you have this in your culture, but for us as children, it was our duty to do well in school because
Yeah.
it reflected well on the family, to have an honorable profession because it would honor the family. Everything we did was a duty or an honor to the family. And I found myself completely bound to that. I couldn't help myself. So I think at the end of the day, I didn't really want to be a doctor. I knew I could be, but if you asked me if that was my dream, no, no. I mean, I did well in school. I could have become a doctor, but the truth is, by the time I was 19, my mom had had terminal cancer for so long, and she lost her battle. And at that point, when she passed away, that tie, because I didn't have a real relationship with my father, the tie I had with my mother and the responsibilities linked with it, in a way, faded away. And I sat there going, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? Because I really don't want to become a doctor." Right. And I ended up changing my major to business. I took some, night classes while I worked because, of course, back then, my mom passed away. I have to make a living in order to, feed myself and support myself. And I was taking night school at the time. So, you know, things that you want to do never come easy. I mean, it comes with a great deal of sacrifice, right? So, but luckily we were young. I mean, back then I was young. I could do it all, right? Work, you know, go to school, have a life. I mean, it was pretty overwhelming, but we did it. And it wasn't until, I don't know, I worked at a high-tech company for quite a while, and I met my now ex-husband. I should say now, he's an ex-husband. And I end up getting married and having 2 kids. And so I have 2 sons, currently aged 24 and 26, and love them to death, and unfortunately our marriage didn't work out, but my ex-husband is a good individual, a kind man. Um, I think we had too much of a gap between us in the way we saw things. And I think when you go into a relationship, people say things that they believe are true. But when the situation arises, things don't work out usually the way they say they're going to work out, and that caused our split. But and I wrote about this, I think, recently in an article where, when I was 20 years old, my mother passed away, completely like turned over my world and my life and the way I saw things. And then 20 years later, I'm getting divorced, and I'm sitting here going, geez, I thought my purpose, which was to be a parent and everything, they're growing up, they're moving out of the house. I'm left here with nothing again, and I'm alone and I have no direction. And I sat there thinking, why have I been playing it safe my entire life? Like I've been so afraid to take risks because the way I was brought up was, oh, you need to have a job, you need to have, a steady income. And I'm like, who made these rules? Because we live in a world where it says you go to school, you go to college, you get married, no, you get a good job, you get married, you have kids, you save for retirement, and then everything's awesome. Bull. It's not awesome. What happens if the economy tanks and your retirement goes?
Totally.
What happens? Well, yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, you're probably at that point too elderly, and maybe your skills too obsolete for you to be even hireable, except for maybe possibly a Walmart greeter. Come on, let's be real, folks. So I took a risk. And with after raising kids and all the things that happened in my life, I figured this is almost my second chapter. This is my time now that I get to kind of experience life because I put
That,
my life on hold.
that must have been a really hard thing to do, taking a risk at the age of around 40, because like most people would never
Yes.
do that. That
It
is
was scary. It was really scary. Like I knew taking that risk could financially kill me, right? But I just thought, my mom died when she was 47, and I was in my 40s at the time I was thinking about it. And I was like, okay, well, if I lived till I was 47 years old, can I honestly say I did everything I wanted to do here? And the answer was no. So I chose to just go, I'm gonna go down my bucket list, because if I die tomorrow, and I'm not guaranteed I'm gonna live. I mean, if I'm gonna get my ticket punched, it's gonna get punched, whether I like it or not, right? And it's my time. Goodbye. I'll see you later, right?
Totally.
But I can't. I mean, I couldn't do that. So I was just like, okay, I'm not happy with my life. Let's do something fun. And first thing on my list was riding motorcycles because it terrified me. And because my brother's a stunt rider and he's actually a stuntman and he works in films a lot in TV shows, movies, commercials, you name it, right? But I just go, yeah, I want to do that. And I thought that it was going to be a passing whim. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to like it. It'll kind of be like a hobby on the side and I'll do something else. Right. So I just made a bucket list of things I wanted to do. That was on the top of the list. Who knew that I was going to fall in love with it?
Became your passion.
I actually loved it so much. I made it a business.
Yeah. The MotoVixens LLC, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Amazing.
Yep.
So what was the biggest lesson you learned over the years, like when you were doing this business and just like when you started it?
Oh, so I've been accused of being naive, and maybe I was. And I'd rather be naive than horribly cynical, because in the beginning, I truly believed that everybody wanted to do this for the betterment of the sport. And I think the greatest disappointment was that nobody else was doing it for the betterment of the sport. The only thing they were looking for is the almighty dollar. And they could care less about my vision, my goal, my everything. It was just, it dashed my hopes, completely dashed my hopes in the people that were out there, right? And I started to wonder, is this my industry only that does this, or is this every industry? Like, I'm all red-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I may be in my 40s, but I'm sitting here thinking everybody wants to save their sport, do good things, make an impact. It never occurred to me that they were going to try to put me out of business. I had no idea. And here I was, very naive, and I just thought, hey, let's all work together because I think we can totally do really good things for the sport, No, their interest is more to make the dollar and crush their competitors. And I was a competitor.
Man.
Yeah. So if I tell you it's going to be easy, it'd be a lie. It's hard. It's freaking hard. But I think eventually when people see that you are genuinely the person you put yourself out to be, then you start getting people that are very drawn to you and will help you. And that's what changed everything for me in my company, the way I looked at things, perspectives, mindsets, everything changed from that point on, because then I met my business advisors. And when they came in, no joke, was close to closing my doors, was having a nervous breakdown. And I mean, they were literally mandating me to take a vacation because I was taking on way too much, for so much effort for so little reward. Right. And I was also struggling with a failing relationship with a boyfriend, ex-boyfriend of mine. Right. And it was so much pressure on a personal level, on a business level, and even individually, I was struggling. So I was having health issues from all the stress. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, like, sometimes you question your decisions to do things, but I think the basis of it, the love of my sport, the passion I have for it, knowing that it saved me and it gave me a purpose, just something it was something I couldn't let go. So of course I persevered and here we are today, and it's a good thing. I think that was, I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years ago when I met them. And they changed the way I've done business and shown me ways to do business that I couldn't even get my head wrapped around when I first met them. And now it's just a part of me, and it's something I get to share with people when they ask me questions and they pick my brain. And I guess in a way you call me a mentor for them, but it's it's kind of like passing it on. That knowledge is not for you to keep exclusively. That knowledge is for you to share. So everybody benefits, and I just think people are, oh, they're so self-centered and selfish that they don't do those things. But it is our responsibility to make sure that we teach people the right way to do things, the ethical way to do things.
Totally. So, what was the biggest challenge you had to face over all this time, like starting from when you did the MotoVixens thing to like right now? What is the biggest challenge? How did you overcome it?
Wow. So the biggest challenge I faced was my competitors. I hate using the word competitor because I didn't want to
This
treat them as my competitors. I really wanted them to be like, honestly, I would have loved it if they were my teammates and we could have all benefited. But they saw me as the enemy. And there was a lot of discussion about like, what do we do? How do we make friends with these guys, even though we know they're not ethical? But there's something you have to ask yourself, like where you stand. Like for me, it was, I don't even want to be friends with these people because they're not ethical. I don't even like these individuals now that I know, who they are. And oh God, Cosmos, I wish I could tell you the things and the lengths they did. Um, to put me out of business. And it included messing around with my social media, having me shut down, doing all kinds of like underhanded
what
things. Oh, you have no
that is
idea. If you, by the way, if you ever have we call it Facebook jail. If for any reason you go into Facebook jail, good luck getting out. You can't get a hold of a person. It's freaking horrible to try to get yourself reestablished back onto social media. But I basically reached out to everybody I could think of. Luckily, one of the members of my staff actually worked within that company, did some research to find out. Another friend that had a woman that worked in corporate, and they looked into it too. And they finally got me reinstated. Now, that was with all the help that I had with connections. It still took me 3 weeks to get back on. So I can only imagine if you didn't have those contacts, what it would take to get back onto social media. I mean, it was horrendous. It was my busiest time of the season. That was when I did all my updates. I did all the announcements. All of it for almost a month was wiped out.
they could have just done a win-win situation, but no, it's like a narcissistic kind of thing where they have to bring the other person down to yeah.
Yep.
I'm
Make
so
somebody smaller to make yourselves bigger. Correct. It was exactly that. And I was devastated. Like because for me to put on events, it's a huge expense. And if I can't even give information out in the avenues and the platforms that I'm accustomed to doing, I mean, think about how that affects me in terms of revenue, right? And yes, we talk about money, not in terms of like it being an evil thing. It is a necessary evil, if you want to put it that way, right? We need it in order to survive, right?
yeah.
And truthfully, if we want to make an impact, let's get into this. We want to make an impact. How are we going to make an impact? Well, you're not going to do it being poor. So in
Totally.
order to make it, sorry, if you want to make an impact, it takes money. And how are you going to do that? You got to make money, right? So let's get the whole money issue out of the way. Money is a tool. Money is not the be all end all of
It's
things.
it's neutral. It's how you use
Yeah.
it that actually matters.
Okay. Again, like a gun, right? Who's the bad person? The gun or the person pulling the trigger?
The person pulling the trigger.
Correct. Same thing with a motorcycle. Is a motorcycle really, really dangerous? In your mind, is a motorcycle dangerous?
Person who drives it.
It's the nut behind the handlebars that's dangerous, right? Because you're the one piloting that bike. By the way, that bike does not do any of the thinking. You're the idiot doing the thinking. So if something goes wrong, it's not the bike's fault. Again, it's a tool. And people misplace the importance of money. And money is just a tool. It's all dependent on the person that's driving, right? Okay. So anyways, yeah. So these guys were making it very, very hard on me. And I had basically exhausted every avenue I had in order to, I don't know, try to make my business run with them as allies versus enemies or competition. I remember having a discussion with my business advisors, and I was like, I'm not really sure how I'm going to do this. And he goes, well, one of them said to me, well, it looks like we're playing a fixed game on their field, and you will never win a game on their field. And I go, okay, well, that's great. I know what are we going to do, right? And I remember him saying this, and it has stuck with me since. He said, create your own field. You can make the rules, and they can't play the game. And I thought, I like that. It's not going head to head with them. I'm removing myself from the equation and starting my own thing over here. And that seemed way more positive to me and a better way to do things than because when you get in these conflicts, there's all these rumors and gossip. And mind you, we have a very small industry because it's a motorcycle industry, right? Word gets around. So instead of playing that game and he said, she said, and oh my God, did you hear? I took myself, removed myself, and put myself somewhere else. And I'm going to go build something on this field that they can't play at because they don't know how.
That is so strategic, and it's a very elegant way of dealing with the situation.
Yeah. Why do you need to fight? You don't need to fight. You can each have your own things and your own niches, and you can all work collaboratively together. There can be a synergy and everybody can benefit. But if you've chosen to make an enemy of me, okay, you just showed me where I stood with you, and that's fine. But mind you, Cosmos, all the people we're talking about and all the companies that are run by men. I was the only woman, and I am the only woman to run a track day organization in the Pacific Northwest.
That is actually really inspirational for other female entrepreneurs that want to get into this thing.
Yeah. And I think it's with me having to go through the hardships, I think it's my responsibility to kind of pave the path for them, to make it easier for them to get through and not have to go through all the hardships that I went through and all the, oh my God, she's just a girl. Oh my God, what's she going to do? Oh my God, she can't do this or that. You know what? I love it when a man tells me I can't do something. Because chances are, not only am I going to do it, I'm going to do it remarkably well and make you look like an idiot.
Yeah, it's kind of like a negative motivation, right? I found it out myself. Like whenever somebody tells me not to, I can't do it, it makes me want to prove them wrong.
Oh yeah, that fire, it just builds up and you're like, yeah, watch me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of my mission too, is because it was so hard for me, going through this industry and nobody wants to talk about it, but it is a boys' club. I mean, this industry is male dominated. That's fine. And I don't have a problem fighting for my position, but I don't like being ridiculed because I'm a woman. I don't like being dismissed because I'm a woman. I'm not dumb. So please don't treat me like I am.
No, yeah, totally. So what is the one thing, Carol, you wish you had known at the beginning of your career, in this motorcycle industry? And what would you advise other people, including women, if they're starting off and pursuing this field and they're just like starting off?
What I wish I would have known is that we are the own creators of our own limited beliefs. And um, I think my idea of risk came from my family. And now that I know what I know, I sit here and I think, wow, I wish I would have been more courageous when I was young. I wish that I hadn't fallen into the quote unquote formula of, going to school, going to university, getting a job, having kids, all that kind of stuff. I wish I wouldn't have followed that formula and I would have taken more risks because in taking the risk, it has given me security. And I think so many of us think that, you know, if we take the safe path, we're fine. We'll have this wonderful life. And if you don't take a risk, how do you know what you're missing? Because truthfully, it could be what you're seeking.
Mhm. Yeah. And regarding the risk, let's say women want to go into your field and they want to go against a male dominated field. What do you think? How would you advise them about going about it? Because I'm sure that there are other women out there that would be interested in that, like in the
Uh,
industry.
find individuals like myself within the industry that love the sport, that have true passion for the sport and want to see it survive. Because for us, money's not the motivator. I mean, the survival of the sport is a motivator.
Totally. So, Carol, they say that America is the land of the free and the land where dreams are made, right? The land of freedom and where dreams are made. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I think gosh, I mean, America is full of so much opportunity and it's just for you to find it, right? And I think everybody wants to have a purpose. Everybody has passions, not necessarily to the point they want to make a business of it, but if you have a passion and you can make a business of it and it's something that truly drives you, I mean, we live in the freaking land of opportunity. Anything and everything can happen. It's just up to you. And you have to take the first step. Nobody's going to invite you to start your company, right? That has to be you. And because at the end of the day, you are the one that has to be in there every single day. And you're going to grind in the beginning and it's going to feel relentless. And if you don't have a true passion and desire for the thing that you say is your passion, you might end up failing and folding very quickly. So you really need to make sure that this is something that you want to do because passion can overcome anything. If you truly love a sport, if you truly love a cause, you will withstand all odds for sure.
Totally, like passion and then like finding a way to monetize it. Like that's how we would do it, you know?
That's the entrepreneurial spirit. That's what we're doing, you know?
No, yeah, totally. So a lot of Americans right now, like they want to realize the American dream, but they go through a lot of issues like attaining it or whatever the idea of it is. So what do you think what do you think they should do to overcome the hurdle to realize the American dream, whether it's for them or whether it's like the ideal for the country?
Well, the for the greater good would be wonderful. I mean, if you do something and you're doing it for the greater good, I have rarely heard an instance where somebody uses that as a main cause that they actually fail. They have pitfalls. Every business has pitfalls, but rarely fails because you always end up finding yourself surrounded by individuals because the more you do it, the more you can almost you start attracting these individuals into your life and maybe it's the light within, like I like to call it, right? That you draw and you attract these people and they end up helping support you, mentor you, and guide you to the place you need to go. Not all of us have a distinct path that we're going to take. Like everybody talks about a plan. You know what? Plans are great. but I have rarely seen a plan happen exactly the way you plan it. Usually somewhere along the lines, it takes a hard left and then you have to start another plan, right? Life is not linear. It's a lot of ups and downs, and you just got to take the ride for it. And it's not going to be easy, like I said, but at the end of the day, if you really want to do this, just take the first step. I mean, you just got to take the first step. If you don't take the first step, and I call it the quote unquote leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in yourself. If you truly want this and you believe in yourself, do it.
Totally. So, Carol, as an entrepreneur, what are your viewpoints and thoughts around like the inflation that's going right now in the country, and also what are your thoughts around debt?
Oh gosh, I did not expect that question. Okay. Again, ups and downs, right? Whenever we have periods of our economy where things are really good, then obviously things have to go the other way. I mean, it has to be like a pendulum swing. It has to balance everything out. I don't know if I necessarily agree with what's going on right now, but I am also not running the nation, so I will keep my mouth shut on those political points.
I'm not talking about politics. It's just like, like as entrepreneurs, like we have a certain cost of production. And then like when there's inflation, like a lot of people, like
You just go with it. You adjust. You have to acclimate and adjust to every new, like even after COVID, new normal, right? There's more costs. We're paying higher prices for everything. Why? Because the companies aren't going to absorb the costs. They're going to, basically put that out and it's going to get absorbed by the consumer. So it's what every business has to do. If the costs go up, they have to raise their rates. Cost of products and services have to go up. Gas prices cause a lot of issues, even with produce ending up on the shelves for you to purchase. Everything, even delays in manufacturing, delays in getting things through customs, all those things play a factor too. So I think as entrepreneurs, I mean, depending on what kind of business that you're in, you end up having to raise your prices. And a lot of what I did see was a lot of people in COVID pivot. I'll give you one story in particular. I have a signature line of vinegars with my gal at Wild Heart Sipping Vinegar,
Mhm.
and her husband owns Sandstone Distillery. And at the time, because COVID shut everything down, they couldn't ship anything, right? So they changed everything within the distillery to start making hand sanitizers. That is brilliant, right? It was a pivot. And so entrepreneurs that survive can pivot, they acclimate.
Yeah, I think that's what I think that's the mindset that most of us as Americans should have. Like instead of like having negativity about like outside conditions, if we have the entrepreneurial spirit, then we can utilize our mindset and actions, and through right action, we just do that.
Yeah. And it was for the greater good, anyways, because the hand sanitizers, they were making it in mass production in the same vats that they used to make, their liquor out of. So it was insane. It was insane to watch. And everybody went by and bought like 5-gallon jugs of like these ridiculous, or sorry, 1-gallon jugs of these hand sanitizers. And if you bought just the spray bottles, you could refill it like crazy. They had it in the schools. A lot of the local businesses supported them. It kept them in business during COVID. That's the entrepreneurial spirit that I love. They took something that was negative and made it a positive. And if we could all do that, I think we'd live in a much better world.
No, totally. So, Carol, like the last few years, there's been a breakdown in the financial sector, and not only that, but also in the family unit and just like government in general. Where do you think America is headed, and should we be optimistic about the future?
Oh my God, you should always be optimistic. Why wouldn't you be? Right? I mean, let's take my childhood. And if I had taken a negative spin, you know how easy that could have been for me to become a drug addict, right? But I'm not wired that way. I'll take hardships, spin them, and make them positive. I'll make them work for me. And I don't think I ever became a cynic from it. You know, why not have everybody think along those same guidelines?
No, totally. Like a lot of people, in today's world, like they are pretty negative, like they blame everything from this, that, government, etc. But like
Yeah.
just thing, like if you could do it, like you came from very difficult circumstances, like your family circumstances were not ideal, but you had that mindset, you had that will, that drive, and then you came out of it. And I think
And by the way, Cosmos, we're human beings. We are going to have off days. I have sad days, just like everybody else, but I won't make excuses for it. I'll have my sad day, and then I'll have, then I'll just, okay, done. I'm done with my own little self-pity party for one day. Now I can go on, right? We are allowed to be human, and we don't have to be perfect. And, there's too much pressure in being perfect also, right? So
Mhm.
that's okay. I mean, we're all going to make mistakes. I mean, how many of us haven't had or said something to a friend that we wish we wouldn't have said? But do we make excuses for it? Well, they kind of deserved it. They were being a jerk, whatever, right? Why not take ownership and responsibility? Accept the mistake you made, right? And apologize to the individual. If we own and take responsibility for our mistakes, people are a lot more forgiving. Nobody wants to hear you're the victim. Yeah, like I'm in the situation because, like this happened in my life. And are you serious? Do you know how many people have shitty situations in their life and they're okay? Some of them not, but for the ones that could overcome it, yes, they are. So, what makes you so special that your situation is so bad that you couldn't overcome it, that you have to blame somebody else for it? Accountability is huge. These days, I do not believe we live in a society that takes accountability for their actions.
I think that's one of the root causes of why we are at where we're at. But yeah, I agree with you. Accountability is important. So, Carol, I know that you wrote this book called The Elegant Disruptor. Can you tell us a little bit more about this book, the premise, and how it came about?
Oh God. Okay. So my
Because it's
advisors had literally wanted me to write a book for 2 years, and I was unwilling. I probably was worse than unwilling. I wouldn't do it. And I told them flat I would do it. I basically said to him, I go, nobody's interested in my story. Right.
that
And
is, I can't believe you actually believe that because your story is really inspirational.
yeah, but until you say it, to me, it was my life. My life did not feel inspirational. So I'm being quite honest. Like I told them, I'm like, no, 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 like no, it's just not, no. I'm nobody. Who's going to want to read a story about me, right? And it was the truth. I mean, I honestly felt that for several years, and then they came to me again, and year after year they brought it up. Year after year, I basically poo pooed it. And then this it was like last year, or just at the beginning of last year, they said it's time. Didn't ask me a question. They just said it's time. So I guess maybe I was procrastinating, and I started writing. And I asked them, I said, how do you want me to write this? And they said, just write and we'll edit. And we did. We hired a professional editor. So I wrote my story. It actually ended up being so long that we broke it into 2 books. Um, and this is the the one I wanted to come out with first kind of gives a lot of the background. Like some of the stuff that you're hearing about, I didn't include into the book that got released. The book that I got released was basically my journey and some lessons I learned along my journey that were very poignant. And so I built stories around, those lessons. But the reason we wrote it was once we started talking about it, it was to inspire people. It was to inspire women, especially women that were dealing with issues, even in relationships, because I think there's a chapter in there about relationships as well. Um, Business, you don't always have to know exactly how to do something. I think as long as you have a very clear vision and um, your strategy can change, right, within that vision, and sometimes it takes some adjustments, and it might take longer than you anticipated, because we all have this, oh, I want to get it done now, but you know what? Life doesn't work that way. You kind of got to earn your stripes to get there. So it's also a educational process as you do it, right? You're learning a lot, not just about yourself, but your business too. So yeah, a lot of it had to be built around those lessons. Uh, we called it the elegant disruptor because I disrupted an industry when I came in here, and they were not happy with me.
Well,
And yeah, they were not happy with me. I don't think they like me still, but I think they tolerate me now.
that is awesome.
Yeah. So I'm proud of it because my hope is it does help somebody. That somebody that reads it goes, "Oh my God, I went through a situation like that. I can get through it." If you can help, one person, to me, that's a win.
Totally. Yeah. I would totally recommend my audience to basically read your book. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so Carol, is there any other work that you're doing right now that you would like us to get a glimpse into, or you're currently working on?
I actually just finished an article that I submitted for a premiere edition of a magazine. That's coming out, so that'll come out, I think, in October. But it has the article's based on dreams and following your dreams.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
Go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
You were talking about other projects. I mean, I have another book. That's the other part of the book. But we're going to, because this one got brought out the way it did, and there was so much information for the other one. I think we're going to kind of revamp and edit the other book as well, and put in some lessons with the stories, because this time it'll be a reverse. Before it was lessons with the story, this time it'll be stories with lessons in it.
Nice. That's really cool. So, Carol, where can our audience go to connect with you and get to know more about the work you're doing and all of that?
Yeah, so my media kit usually tells, what I've done and what might be upcoming, and that's Carol Carpenter Media is where they can look for me there, and I think my book is on there now. I'm not really sure, but if there'll be a link. Everything is usually linked under that main website.
Okay, nice. So, well, I mean that concludes our show for now, Carol. I mean, thank you so much for actually coming and doing this with us. You're actually pretty inspirational. Not only are you like an immigrant, but you're also inspiring female entrepreneurs to go into your field and everything. We would love to have you back into this show. And
Okay.
yeah, I would like to conclude by saying, telling to my fellow extraordinary Americans that, hey, there's an extraordinary within each one of us, and it's our job to empower and unleash them. Thank you for now. Bye. Hey there, everyone. Thank you for watching Extraordinary America. If you like what you see, please do subscribe to our podcast and share it with others. Remember that the best investment that you can make in your lifetime is in your own financial education, for it is knowledge that truly sets you free. Also, remember that your purchasing power is being diluted through inflation, and then the practical thing to do is to protect the loss of your purchasing power by investing in precious metals or the right cryptocurrencies. Also, never forget that you are an extraordinary American. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.